And I get along with Chuck, and I really educated. Hello. Good evening, community members. Welcome to this evening's candidate forum for House 33, District 33, excuse me. I'm Linda Barton, chair of the League of Women Voters of Fremont County. The League is pleased to host a series of 8 candidate forums during the 2022 election season. Some of you have probably heard this 8 times. Tonight's forum will be our final for this election season. We are very gratified and thankful for the ongoing support from the Fremont County residents who are following our forums both in person and online through our online presence via Facebook and YouTube platforms. I think you will find that tonight's questions have a different focus from last night's forum, and it would benefit you to watch last night's forum online to get a comprehensive perspective of the candidates' responses from questions about tribal relations to key policy issues. The League of Women Voters of Fremont County, Wyoming, is nonpartisan, grassroots organization and part of the state and national League of Women Voters. The League believes voters should play a critical role in democracy, and it encourages informed and active government participation. The League is dedicated to voter education and voting rights and providing information that helps voters make informed decisions at the polls. The League of Women Voters of Fremont County was founded in the winter of 2020 by a group of local citizens who wanted to promote our free and fair and open election process. Community members came together to determine the questions being asked this evening. The League does not support or endorse any candidate running for office. The League distributes unbiased candidate information through our election guide, mailed to over 18,000 households in Fremont County. The responses from the candidates are not edited when we make the guide. Whatever the response is that they provide to us for the election guide goes in exactly that way. We also have the Be a Voter guide that informs the Fremont County of the many ways to register to vote and how to request an absentee ballot. Copies of both of these publications are available at our entrance table. If you want to add your name to our listserv, we would be happy to include you in our continuing information that we send out via our listserv. And visit our Facebook page at Fremont County League of Women Voters for information about our local elections, election guide, and candidate forums. Tonight's forum is being live streamed and made available on the YouTube channels of County 10, WYO Today, and the League's website. We invite you to join the League of Women Voters of Fremont County. Are you getting the message? We want you to join. And please consider making a donation as well to the League so that we can continue to offer voter education. We want to thank our County Clerk, Julie Fries, and the Fremont County Election Office staff for providing guidance and information over the past months and registering voters, and still ongoing registering voters. Thanks goes to the Forum Committee, made up of community members for their counsel and time, Ernie Over for moderating this final forum, WYO Today Media, and County 10 for hosting our forum videos. Finally, we want to thank the candidates for running for elected office. It is a commitment of time, energy, and emotional and mental strength. We welcome you both and wish you well in your campaigns. With that, please welcome our moderator for tonight's forum, Ernie Over, who will discuss the guidelines and begin tonight's events. So thank you again for joining us, and we'll get started now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Linda. As the editor and news director of WYO Today Media's 5-station radio network, wyotoday.com, and the Lander, Riverton, and Wind River newspapers, I'm eager to make sure that we get a lot of information out there before the election about each of the candidates. The goal for the forum is to give candidates time to share their thoughts and ideas and answer questions from everyone. Tonight, we have current representative from House District 33, Andy LeBeau, and challenger Sarah Penn. And if you watched last night's debate, it was an excellent one. And hopefully we'll have another one to chase it with tonight. Again, as Linda indicated, this forum is being live streamed by WYO Today YouTube and County 10, and will be available on WYO Today, County 10, and the Fremont County League of Women Voters website. Now, here's the format for tonight's forum, just so you have a sense of what's going to happen tonight. We're going to begin with each candidate offering a prepared 2-minute opening statement. Then we'll follow with a number of questions submitted to and vetted by community members. Each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to respond. When the candidates have 15 seconds remaining, we will have Sam here raise an orange or yellow sign that indicates we've got 15 seconds to go. And we'll rotate the order using a randomized computer program. In advance, thank you, candidates, for respecting the time limits. You did pretty good last night, so let's keep that up. The next section of the forum will be the one-word lightning round. Each candidate will be given one word or phrase and 15 seconds to respond to that word. Candidates may give a total of one word or as many as they like to fill that 15-second time slot. Each candidate will be given a total of 4 words, and we have a new twist on that for tonight, so stay tuned for that. The idea is to hear what associations each candidate makes when given a simple prompt. Following the lightning round, the audience gets their turn. The audience has been given index cards to write down your questions, and if you are thinking about a question, make sure you have one of those index cards to write it down. And over there, Michelle has got one, in the little blue ones. If you need a card, let her know, and she'll get them over to you. Now, these cards will be collected after our 3rd round of questions. So if you want a question, get it in early. And as in the regular format, each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to answer the audience question. And then each candidate will have 90 seconds to present an unprepared closing statement. So tonight, as we heard last night, there are probably going to be some things you agree with and some things that you don't agree with. But we do have one rule. I'll ask the audience to hold any reaction to the response of any question until we're at the very, very end of the forum. Then you'll have a chance to show your appreciation to both of the candidates. Okay. And as last night, I wanted to recognize several elected officials that we have in the audience tonight. From the Lander City Council, we have Councilmember John Larson and Julia Stubel. Thank you for being here. We also have our County Assessor, Tara Berg, and Mike Jones, one of our Fremont County Commissioners. Thank you for coming today. You guys have all been through this, so you know what they're about to go through. All right. So, let's see. Okay, here we go. Here are the questions. But we're first going to start with an opening statement. And last night, Sarah, you went first, so tonight we'll let Ms. LeBeau go first, and then you'll follow. Okay? Andy LeBeau, you're first with your opening statement.
He say he nanan nino. Not ne Greg LeBeau nanan ne sano. Nanana na na nanana na he nanana na newa nanana na nebi nanana na hebehet nanana na ni nahu ni etadana da anta na ni etadana na da anta na na. Hello, my relatives. My name is Coming Woman. My mother is Rosalie Sage. My father is Greg LeBeau. I'm a mom. I'm an auntie. I'm a grandma. I'm a big sister. I'm a little sister. And I'm a politician. And I'm happy that you all are here, and I'm happy to be here with you all. I'm proud to represent House District 33 for the past 4 years, and I'm running for re-election to continue to be a loud and proud voice for the District of 33, which is largely 60% tribal, meaning the indigenous lands and homes of the great nations of the Eastern Shoshone or Northern Arapaho. And I believe in diversity. I support farmers, ag producers. I have them in our tribes, both tribes. And I'm just honored and glad to be here tonight. Aho.
Thank you, Ms. LeBeau. Ms. Penn?
I'm Sarah Penn, and I've been in Fremont County for 8 years with my family. My husband is a shop teacher out on the reservation. I've got 3 little kids. I'm a nurse practitioner at the Lander Medical Clinic. Why am I here? I'm here because I see a need. I see a need for principled citizens to enter the legislature. I'm tired of watching our politicians be swayed by the winds and by popular opinion. I'm tired of them working to institute what they think should be institute their own agenda, and mostly I'm tired of watching them bow down and then bind the people with the strings of the federal dollars that they work hard to get. I want to promote the cause of liberty and make liberty win. I think that the proper role of government is to get out of the way of the people. I want to support the people so that they have a future rather than just offering them their next meal. We're in difficult times, and those difficulties will continue unless we are willing to look for people who are willing to consider a different course. I think that we can look ahead to a bright future if we're willing to have the courage to make some serious changes.
All right, thank you very much. And now we will go into our questions. And Ms. Penn, you will have the first question tonight. According to the Census Reporter, House District 33 covers 2,965 and 6/10 square miles and includes approximately 9,500 citizens. The question is, what strategies will you use to connect with this diverse and rural population across this vast landscape?
By nature, I'm a fixer and a problem solver. In my profession as a nurse practitioner, people come to me with their problems, and together we work to find what the root cause is, and then we work to find solutions. And I think that's very applicable to what a representative does for the people. And to me, it doesn't matter what the diversity is. We are all people, and we all have different, but at the same time, we have similar needs. I've learned in my personal experiences, especially with my husband, if he comes to me to discuss a problem, I have to say, am I supposed to listen, or am I supposed to help you fix this problem? Because I automatically go there. I automatically start looking for what the solution is. What can we do to fix this issue? I'm organized. I'm a fast learner. I'm a team player. And I think that that is a super important part of being a representative, to be able to have good interpersonal skills, to work with other people, to get legislation passed. In the emergency room, I spent almost a decade in the ER. And in the emergency room, you often work under pressure. So I have that experience of doing hard things under pressure and still being expected to work and to act. There, we also used to say that we were a jack of all trades, but an expert of none. And I think that representatives are very similar to that as well. There's a lot of base knowledge that needs to happen, but at the same time, we're not, I don't think representatives and legislators should be considered the experts. The citizens should be the experts. And we should go to the citizens and have that relationship so that they can come to us and we can collaborate to come up with the very best plan for all.
Thank you. Ms. LeBeau.
Could you repeat the question again?
Absolutely. According to the Census Reporter, House District 33 covers 2,965 and 6/10 square miles and includes approximately 9,500 citizens. The question is, what strategies will you use to connect with this diverse rural population across this vast landscape?
The way that I'll connect with the diverse population of House District 33 is just to listen to understand. I don't portray to be an expert, but I've been born and raised all my life on the Wind River Indian Reservation. Always came to these border towns. And I represent all people, but then I also gonna speak out and speak proud about the treaty rights that both the Eastern Shoshone and Northern Arapaho have here in the Fremont County. We're in the United States Constitution. We are given rights in Indigenous to before Wyoming was a statehood, and so I come with that. But I live in two worlds. My grandma and grandpa always told me to go and get an education, and you come back and help your people. So I learn, I know and understand the greater context of what American society is. But when you talk about liberty and freedom, I'm gonna always fight for sovereignty. I'm not gonna let nobody chip away at what that is. And we can come to the table and we can always agree, and we can agree to disagree. But I am always gonna respect our tribal leaders to take that lead in what's best for the Indigenous people of Wyoming. Wyoming's two tribes, Eastern Shoshone, Northern Arapaho. You won't find them anywhere else. We have sister tribes relations, but this is where we are. This is where we learn and teach our culture and our languages for all people. And we've been welcoming people. Indigenous people have been welcomed. We like diversity. We always have. Oh.
Thank you. Ms. Penn, would you like a follow-up on that?
No, thanks.
Okay, very good. I neglected to introduce Sam Dainert, who is our timer. He's the guy with the multicolored construction paper over here, who is timing it out for us tonight. Thank you, Sam. Our second question will go first to Ms. LeBeau. Should tribal governments be able to share in sales tax revenue distributions from the state of Wyoming?
I think the tribes should be able to share in state sales tax. We get our paychecks, and we go to the border towns, and we pay taxes. And for a long time, studies may have been out there, but I think we need an updated study is what services and those taxes come back to the reservation. We have a solid waste problem that we need fixed, and that takes a four-pronged approach with our county, with our state, with the tribes, and the federal government. And so I think that that's important, and but at the same time, we need to respect our elected leaders and tribal leaders, and what do they want to see sustained as tax revenues? And it is in our treaty. We can start taxing. Our tribal nations, 2 nations here, we have the authority and the power to start taxing for what we want to support our economies and what we feel is our priorities on the reservation. So, yes.
All right. Ms. Penn?
Could you just repeat that for me, please?
Absolutely. Should tribal governments be able to share in sales tax revenue distributions from the state of Wyoming?
I think that they should be able to share to the degree that they also contribute to the sales tax. Yesterday we had a question about should tribes be tax exempt when we're talking about internet sales, and if the tribes get special tax exemptions that non-tribal members don't receive, it should be equivalent. So if they are contributing to the pot, then yes, they should receive the distributions. But there should be a give and take there.
Ms. LeBeau, any follow-up?
I think we give our due diligence, and we do it. It's an inherent right of Indigenous people in our treaties again. We've given a lot. We've given up a lot of land, a lot of resources, water, oil, above the ground, below the ground, our water resources that go out that we've never been really compensated for. And so, again, sovereignty, that's what it's about. And so, again, I shared the example, if we have buy vehicles and it's delivered to the reservation, tax exempt. We'll pay some taxes, but that's our inherent right. And that's what I believe. That's what I believe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next question will go to Ms. Penn. This is about election integrity. How do you view the state of our election integrity in Fremont County?
I think that in Fremont County, generally, our election integrity is pretty good. Our machines are not connected to the internet. We are told that they don't have modems inside. However, we can't confirm that for ourselves. We have to take the word of an outside source that says we don't have modems inside. We're unable to open them and look inside. We're unable to check their software and their coding because that information is considered proprietary. I think that the integrity of our elections is of the utmost importance, and I think that it's a good thing that people are asking questions because it's such an important thing. And if we have nothing to hide, then there should be nothing to see there, and people shouldn't have difficulty with questions that are being asked. I do have concerns that electronics in general just increase our risks of having more interference and increase our security concerns. There's always going to be security issues with any kind of election, but I do have some concerns. I think that we should continue asking questions and continue to look for ways that we can shore up the integrity of our elections. I would love to be done with ballot boxes. Maybe we don't have a problem in Fremont County, but that doesn't mean we couldn't have a problem, and I think that increases our risks. I would like to see our paper ballots have more security as well. If you look at a $20 bill, it's got holograms and it's got watermarks and it's got things. There are other states that have those on their ballots as well, and we should as well. You can have a QR code. I believe it's Arizona has a QR code that you can scan with your phone, and you can follow your ballot from when you voted till the end, and you can make sure that your ballot was counted the way that you voted. There are other things that we can do, and I think it's a conversation to continue working on.
Okay, thank you. Ms. LeBeau.
I think we run good election integrity. And remember, I come from a people that the election system wasn't designed for my people's participation or protection. We had a fight. My grandfather, born in 1912, didn't become an official United States citizen until 1924. Although he wasn't asked if he wanted to become, they just kind of granted him that United States citizenship. But again, per capita, you'll see a lot of Native Americans fight in our wars to protect this land that's indigenous to all Native people here. And so with election integrity, it's important, but we have to do our due diligence and strike a balance. So we talk about technology, we talk about modem, and I think a lot of the national politics trickle down here to Wyoming. One of the least populated states, where's the data that shows years and years of past election fraud? If there is election fraud or allegations of it, it's investigated, and it's few and far between. So this rhetoric coming down from the national politics, I think it's not here. We need to trust our elected officials and strike that balance between technology and what that is. And so we do right. Could there always be improvements? Yes, there could, but I believe in ballot drop boxes. I want more increased voter access to voting, and I don't think we've had a problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Follow-up, Ms. Penn?
I would just say that once again, if we have no concerns, then that's great, that's wonderful. But if there are concerns, and obviously some people do have concerns, what is the problem with continuing to increase our security, such as the watermarks and the QR codes and things like that?
Thank you. Well, audience, now it's your time. We've reached the end of the third question. If you have a question for our candidates here, would you please raise your hand with your postcards? And our League of Women Voters volunteers will come around and collect them, and then we will ask them later on after they are vetted, I think. Questions? No? Okay. Do we have all the postcards in? Okay, very good. We will continue now with Ms. LeBeau and a question on finances. What actions should the state of Wyoming be taking in obtaining federal reimbursements through Title IV-E of the Social Security Act, specifically for federal payments for foster care, prevention, and permanency?
I think the action, again, with our elected tribal leaders of both tribes at the forefront of what that is, along with our social services and those programs that oversee the Title IV-E funding. And there's always a need. And we pushed for the census, and we wanted everybody to be counted, because when we count our Native people, that brings more dollars here to the reservation. And because of historical trauma, intergenerational trauma, our boarding schools experiences, where my grandparents were beaten and whipped and starved for speaking their language, I think we come with a lot of trauma that still trickled down from generation after generation. But again, when I say that, we're very perseverant, we're very resilient. But we have needs, we need to look at those deep roots, and a lot of that will come with substance abuse and mental health. But those dollars are there, and we need to access those dollars.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Penn.
I would take a little different approach. I am very hesitant at anything that is looking at increasing the amount of federal dollars that we bring in. Federal dollars always come with federal strings, and that's not something that I think as a state, a sovereign state, that we want to be interested in doing. When we look to government, in situations such as these, when we look to government as the problem, the solution to our problem, then we stop looking for other solutions. And we miss out on a lot of other possibilities. We as citizens need to become more engaged in our communities, and we need to reach out to each other and facilitate more of a community effort rather than just looking to the government to solve our problems.
Any follow-up, Ms. LeBeau?
You know, I'll push back, and we are federally recognized tribes, and there is a due diligence and a federal obligation for our two sovereign nations that are here. And if we have access to it, then we're going to have access to it, and I think we need it. And I don't think of the government, it's very, it's case by case on how we look at the federal government. And it's case by case in how we do that. But more so than not, the two tribes, they take a lot of federal dollars. They do. And that's fine by me.
Our next question is for Ms. Penn, deals with legislation on the state level. Should the state of Wyoming adopt legislation that mirrors the federal Indian Child Welfare Act legislation? Why or why not?
I think that's a good discussion to have. I know that the tribes support having basically a trigger. So we just had with Roe v. Wade being overturned, the state had a trigger law that would take effect if that occurred. Currently, Brackeen versus Halen is before the Supreme Court and is expected to be answered, I believe, around June or July. And so the question is, do we need to have a fallback if the current ICWA laws get overturned at the federal level? Do we need to have something to back it up at the state level? And I think that's definitely a conversation that I'm willing to have. I think that all children need to have good protection, and kids need to have the opportunity to stay put in their homes.
Ms. LeBeau, any follow-up?
Yeah, I cringe, and it's unfortunate that there's that federal case that's going to be handed down in June, July, because it's usually not good for Indigenous nations when they go before the Supreme Court. It's usually usurping our sovereignty, and so you always take that risk. And again, with the leaders, elected leaders of our tribal nations, sitting as equals at a table and looking if it should be overturned and listening to our leaders and how that's going to look and how that's going to be set up according to our customs, our morals, our ethics, and just what it is to be an Indigenous person and how we look at family. How we look at family is keeping our Native kids with our families, with our culture, with our reservation connected to this land. Because there's so much traditional ecological knowledge that's been handed down from elders for thousands of years. And it's important for our kids to know that and not lose that.
Thank you. The next question is about tribal relations, and we'll go to Ms. LeBeau. What does the ideal relationship between the two business councils and the Wyoming Legislature look like? And how do we build an ideal relationship?
Gosh, the ideal relationship for tribal relations is a good conversation with our county delegation and those that sit on our select committee on tribal relations. But I also want the Speaker of the House to come and visit our tribal chambers. I want our President of the Senate to come and visit each of our tribal chambers where our elected officials conduct the day-to-day business. And I want us to be equal. And I want those meetings to be run by tribal leaders. I don't want the state to sit there and dictate, coming in thinking that the state knows what's best for the tribes. I want the state to come in and be open-hearted and an open mind to listen, to understand what our issues really are. And for too long, that's happened to us. So as equals, coming to the table, and sovereign nations coming together to come up with some solutions.
Thank you. Ms. Penn?
So I think it's important to approach the table with respect. There's a quote that says one of the most sincere forms of respect is listening to what another has to say. And that is an important way to approach any relationship, especially relationships where there have been some historical difficulties and currently still are. And so respect is something that's earned, but it's also something that can be given. And so it's important that people approach that relationship truly listening and hearing what the other side has, there's several different entities there, and hearing what those other entities have and what their needs are and what their concerns are. And hopefully they can all come together to create a great path and a great solution for whatever the needs are, and to have the individual people, the individual citizens, at the forefront of all of their decisions, and make sure that each decision that gets made is done so in that way.
Thank you. Follow up, Ms. LeBeau?
No.
No. Very good. The next question then is about education and infrastructure. This will go to Ms. Penn. Technology continues to be an ever-growing part of education, yet kindergarten through 12th grade students who live in rural Wyoming are challenged because of the lack of residential broadband access. Should broadband access be a state priority? And what opportunities have you identified to build broadband infrastructure in rural Wyoming?
Could you repeat that last bit?
What opportunities have you identified to build broadband infrastructure in rural Wyoming?
So living rurally definitely comes with a lot of challenges, and internet access is absolutely one of those. I mean, in Lander, depending on where you live, you may or may not have internet access. You may or may not have cell phone service. The question in my mind is, what is the proper role of government? Is the proper role of government that we supply those things? I think that's a question that I'm definitely willing to have, or a conversation I'm willing to have. But as I've said before, when we involve government in those types of entities, we remove the incentive for the free market to do what it needs to do. If we allow the free market to provide the access that people need, then typically things work better. Sometimes there may be a short-term incentive that government can provide to get things going, but I wouldn't want it to be. I would want something like that to have a sunset, so that the free market then has the opportunity to thrive.
Thank you. Ms. LeBeau?
I wholeheartedly agree that the federal government should help broadband, particularly on the reservation with very limited rural access to broadband. When we want to go, because of the pandemic, we go to online learning, remote learning. We're talking about technologies, but then again, we're not when it comes to election. And, all this technology we talk about, we want balance, we need it, we want it. And, what are those accesses to get it? And the tribes has wholeheartedly supported federal funding for broadband. It's expensive. Tribes can't afford it. So if the federal government can help us, then so be it. That's what we need. It's at the end of the day, it's going to help our kids. It's going to help our future generations, because we're going more technology, and that's what's important. And there always is a choice for tribal leaders whether to take federal funding or not, and there always is a decision whether they waive some of their sovereignty. But that's their decision. That's their choice, and they'll look at that case by case. But again, my tribes could not afford it. And so we will gladly accept federal funding and dollars to increase broadband access.
Thank you. A response?
No follow-up.
Okay, no follow-up. Thank you. This next question is concerning health care, and it goes to Ms. LeBeau first. Please explain what Medicaid expansion encompasses and why you support or oppose Medicaid expansion.
I wholeheartedly support Medicaid expansion. You look at the population in the House District 33, are people in the gap. They don't earn enough or they earn too much. And so with Medicaid, if we would expand Medicaid, it would cover those people. Not the people that don't have jobs or sitting around, but those people that just are making it paycheck to paycheck. Those people that are just surviving. And so it'll fill that gap to give them quality health care that they deserve and that they need. And that should be a right. It's so important, especially when you look at House District 33 and all of the health disparities that we have as Indigenous people. High rates of diabetes, high rates of heart disease, high rates of cancer. And again, that's going back to the intergenerational trauma and historical trauma that my ancestors suffered. And again, where I'm talking about these very deep layers. And so 100%, I've argued on the floor of the House, I've argued in committee, I've spoke on it in Tribal Relations Committee. I support the expansion of Medicaid.
Thank you. Ms. Penn?
As a nurse practitioner, I care about people, and I've dedicated a great deal to being able to care for people. I work in healthcare, obviously, and I see the other side of Medicaid. Let me give you an example. The charge for a chest x-ray is $150, which is a very reasonable charge. Medicaid reimburses $25. It doesn't cover the costs of what it takes to provide the service. And so what happens is a facility is required then to either raise costs on everything else and everyone else, or limit the number of patients, Medicaid patients that they see, and typically both ends up happening. And so outside of expanding a government-funded healthcare, which expands our government, I'm not interested in that. What does it actually do for or to the people? We tend to want to look at all of the positives, but are there negatives? Absolutely there are negatives. Yes, if we expand Medicaid, then these people will technically have insurance. But if you talk to our local providers, they have to limit the number, they choose to limit the number of patients, Medicaid patients that they see, because they simply can't afford to see all Medicaid patients. And so what ends up happening is you get a backlog. Think for a minute as an example, if you were to, a theater was to give out tickets to everyone for free, and you line up, you're so excited to see the show, and you get up there almost to the time, and they say, we're sold out, you gotta come back. But I have my ticket. We're sold out, you gotta come back to another showing. And so that's what ends up happening, is we end up causing a bottleneck, and while people technically have insurance, they still have no access to health care.
Right, thank you. Any follow-up, Ms. LeBeau?
Being a federally enrolled member in a recognized tribe, we call the federal match the FMAP. If we go out and we Medicaid expand and a lot of Indigenous people get on Medicaid, it's 100% federal matching. State don't have to pay anything. Why would we not do that as Indigenous people? Why would we not? And I think when we have that, we get to focus on preventative care, so we don't get to those end-of-life cases. We don't get to a bad quality of life. That's what Medicaid expansion is going to do for all people, for over 17,000 people in Wyoming.
Thank you. This next question concerns gaming, and it goes to Ms. Penn first. In September, the Northern Arapaho Tribe submitted a proposal to the Joint Revenue Committee in response to their statewide request for kindergarten to 12th grade funding solutions. The proposal allows the tribe to set up Class 3 gaming as a vendor on the state school trust lands. Additionally, the arrangement includes revenue sharing that ensures at least 75% of net revenues from the gaming operations and the land lease payments to benefit K through 12 funding accounts. The question is this: do you believe that this proposal warrants serious consideration? Why or why not?
I need a lot more information on this subject. The question is, do I think that it warrants serious consideration? Absolutely. If I'm going to represent District 33, and I know that that is something that the tribes are interested in doing, then I will seriously consider it. I will look at what they bring to me and what their concerns are and what they feel like the takeaways are, and I will, as a representative, see what I think is the best option for what the state role would be in that situation. What is the state role of government there?
Okay. Follow up, Ms. LeBeau.
I think that's genius. I think it's supporting our education and giving back in ways that an Indigenous tribe wants to give back, particularly in supporting the education of our children and future generations to come. And I think we sit in the driver's seat and we look at that. And I could tell you, our casino's been a great economic driver for both tribes in providing jobs, quality jobs, and supporting a lot of families that again come to the border towns and spend their money and pay taxes.
Yep. Thank you. The next question is one of everyone's favorite. It's taxation. Now, higher property tax values have increased almost everyone's property taxes. Citizens are demanding the legislature do something to ease this burden, particularly as it impacts citizens on fixed income. Long-term fixes require a constitutional amendment, which could be considered in 2024. Options to provide immediate short-term help are being considered. One option is to exempt a property's first $50,000 in value from taxation. This exemption is estimated to amount around $52 million a year. Do you support this approach to property tax relief? And where would you propose that the $52 million annually come from the state's general fund budget?
Is that to me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't know if I would.
I'm sorry, it's to Ms. LeBeau.
Okay.
Can't read my own writing here.
Speaking of taxes, and particularly coming from an Indigenous perspective, from a reservation that's in tribal trust, large majority in the land that was gifted to me by my mother before she had passed on, it's not taxed. It's in tribal trust. That's most of House District 33. However, I know we're in inflation times. I know we're coming out of a pandemic. I know people are struggling, again, paycheck to paycheck, and I always will err on the side of revenues that help people, whether that's an exemption, that property tax exemption for Fremont County, and then those deeded lands that are within the reservation, then yes, I'm not opposed to having a conversation and looking at what that looks like. But also, I wholeheartedly support the wealth tax. People that come to Wyoming that have a second home, we should be taxing them. I would support a tax like that.
Thank you. Ms. Penn, please.
So it's important to understand what is affecting our property taxes and our rate increase. The algorithm that is used to produce what our rate is uses the fair market value of our home, so the sale price. Lately, we've been seeing an inflated housing market. We've been seeing, in some situations, out-of-staters coming and paying cash for homes, sight unseen, and sometimes for over market value. And it's those sale prices that goes into the algorithm that ultimately determines what our property taxes are. I don't know the answer if what was suggested here is the right answer. Something that I've looked at a lot, and in one option or that could be done is instead of using that fair market value, possibly considering using the acquisition value of your home. So not the price that it's currently that your neighbor's house just sold for, but the price that you paid for your home. And there would be something, to help adjust for inflation. It wouldn't be something that would stay absolutely constant, because inflation and state budgets and everyone's budgets are going to change. But that would provide the opportunity to have a little more static tax rate that the homeowner can expect, and then also the government can have some idea of what the revenue would be.
Thank you. Ms. LeBeau? No? All right, the next question goes to Ms. Penn, and this concerns finances. State employee compensation with benefits has seriously lagged behind the private sector. Critical professions supporting the function of state government, such as information technology, engineers, attorneys, highway patrol personnel, and snowplow drivers, have left state jobs for higher-paying private sector jobs. In the 2022 budget session, The legislature and the executive branch appropriated funds to close disparities in state employee compensation formula, addressing the remaining shortfall to bring the compensation up to 2020. Please explain why you do or do not support this effort.
I believe in supporting workers. I believe in providing incentive for workers to do a good job at what they do and want to remain employed. And so if benefits is attractive to people, and for most people, that is one of the top reasons why we seek employment at a specific place or remain employed there. And so if the state is needing to make changes in order to retain staff, I think that that's definitely something worth looking at. The question in my mind is, where is that money going to come from? If we're looking at increasing taxes in order to be able to do that, I would be against that. But what I would be for is to evaluate where our current budget could be changed. We all have household budgets that we have to manipulate and we have to play with so that we can afford the meat and bones. And when times are lean, that's what's required. And our government isn't exempt from that. And so if we have a cost here that we feel is worth funding, then let's be creative and let's find a way to come up with that funding without raising the taxes.
Ms. LeBeau?
Oh, I wholeheartedly, I'm always going to side on the the side of putting people first. And I've supported the ECA, 5% increase for all public employees. Everybody in the state of Wyoming depends and benefits from those public services that the state provides. And so I think that's crucial. It's crucial to the infrastructure. It's crucial to everybody, to Wyoming and her people. And so, yeah.
Okay. Any follow-up, Ms. Penn? All right, very good. The next question goes to Ms. LeBeau on school funding. What is your opinion of using public funding for private religious-based and charter school education? And please explain your answer.
I come from a place of holistic view. I come from a people that respected other people's religions and other people's gods. Whatever that was, they respected that diversity and that right. There has to be a crucial conversation. Our districts on the reservation are one of the top employments for our residents here. They provide and sustain a lot of our families here. And education has always been important to our elders. And again, elders always say, you get your education, you come back and you help your people. And so that's important. I would say with a caveat, I'm not exposed to looking at charter schools and private schools, because you know what? Wouldn't it be awesome to have a good Eastern Shoshone and Northern Arapaho school where the priority is our language and our customs and our ways and our practices? That would be awesome. And to look at traditional ecological knowledge and all the thousands of years of knowledge, of elder knowledge that's been passed down for our climate. Traditional ecological knowledge in indigenous country equals science. It's our animals, our water, our air, Mother Earth, our plants, our wildlife. It includes all of that. So I'm not opposed to that. I'm not opposed to looking into what that is.
Thank you. Ms. Pan?
So the question talks about public funding for private religious and charter school education. Our Constitution, our Wyoming State Constitution, prevents us from directly offering state funds to private entities. And so funding most religious schools are private. And so we couldn't directly do that. That does happen by way of, getting creative. So like a business council grant that the business council could then give the money to a private entity. I am very supportive of charter schools. So charter schools are independently operated public schools, and they have been shown to have higher levels of achievement. And so I think that we should continue to support those and expand our opportunities as we're able. When we're talking about funding of schools, I think it's important to just examine the funding. Where is our money going, and is it working for us? Wyoming spends about $16,000 per student. The surrounding states are nearly half of that. So, and we're rural, so costs are greater. When you have fixed costs that you have to spread out among students, if you have less students, it costs more. But are we getting the most bang for our buck? Are we getting our money's worth there? And I'm not sure that we are. In recent years, our student enrollment numbers have decreased while our staff numbers have increased. So what's that doing for us? Is that working for us? I'm not sure that it is. Are our students graduating career and college ready? I think we have work to do, and therefore we need to critically examine our structure and look at making some changes.
Thank you. Ms. LeBeau?
I don't have a...
Okay. The next question then would go to Ms. Penn on emergency management funding issues. Out of all of Wyoming counties, Fremont County is most acutely affected by the ambulance and life flight services and trained volunteer staff. Funding from the American Rescue Plan Act allowed local ambulance service to continue. How should we fund local ambulance service post-ARPA funding? Additionally, how do we reduce the number of life flights out of the community?
So I see emergency services as being a very essential part of our society. It's again, we come up in Wyoming against the ruralness of our society and the difficulty at accessing people and such. Talking about how often we fly patients out. Fremont County flies more people out than the next 5 counties combined. And so we, in this area specifically, have some serious work to do. I spent a decade in the emergency room, and so when I had a patient that I knew could stay in a facility, it didn't mean it could always stay in the facility. Oftentimes, we think about, well, we need better trained doctors and we need, different doctors. It's not always the doctor. In fact, usually it isn't the doctor that determines if this patient can stay or does it need to be flown out. Usually it's the nursing staff. Oftentimes in my situation, if I had a patient that I knew that the physician that I was admitting this patient to had the skills to keep that patient, they would say, I can't do it because I don't have the nursing staff to keep that patient. I don't have nurses that are qualified to take care of that level of acuity. I don't have the nurses, period. Sometimes it's just that we just don't have the staff. And let's focus there. Let's see what we can do to keep our patients, keep our loved ones, our family members close. We're making good strides in Riverton on the new facility that's being worked on there, and we need to do more of that.
Thank you. Ms. LeBeau.
One word, Medicaid expansion. That's why we need it. It'll fund and help with that gap. And I'm going to tell you, I'm 100% sure a large majority of the people that are being life flighted out of Fremont County are going to be Indigenous people. And again, if we had that preventative care early on, before they get to chronic illnesses, we would have less life flights out. But again, we work in systems that weren't designed for our protection nor our participation, including hospitals and that healthcare system, and so we still have some racial tensions to overcome. And sometimes I know personally from experience, our Indigenous people will be asked to be flown out, will be asked to go to a specialized care where they feel more comfortable and more respected when they carry their traditional ways or ceremonial ways of whatever that is in collaboration with medical society and practices today. I think that's important. And so again, that's one thing of Medicaid expansion. That's one thing that'll help this District 33.
Thank you. Follow up, Ms. Penn?
I do a couple things. I hear a lot of government funding here, and I just have to say that the government coffers do have bottoms. It's not an endless pit. We don't get to print money. The other thing I would say is she talked about lifestyle or about preventative care, and I think that's wonderful. Let's focus on being more healthy. Let's focus on changing our lifestyles. Let's focus on better diets and those types of things to help us be healthy, and therefore we're not requiring as much medical service.
Thank you. The last of our regular questions will go to Ms. LeBeau, and it concerns water. How can the state of Wyoming address and adapt to the increasing and worsening cycles of drought to improve the management and conservation of water for the short-term and long-term health of our communities, economy, and ecosystems?
I think first and foremost with House District 33, I'll just start there, is a good assessment of water. Who's the water users? Let's look at good water priority rights, what that is. Maybe the output of agricultural produce. How is that benefiting House District 33? You know, and really taking a good look at that. There's, again, statistical data out there that we just really need to come together as a state, the county, and the tribes and really look at what that water looks like. Do we need to have a discussion about more dams? Do we need to storage more water? Again, taking the lead from the tribe because we have 1868 priority water rights. We have that. Our reservation was set up by the federal government to become farmers and ranchers, mainly farmers. We have the water, we have the land. What does that look like? And again, I'm going to go back to traditional ecological knowledge. When we talk about hemp, I listen loud and clear. My constituents want hemp. Hemp, you can make a lot of stuff from it. It's indigenous to Mother Earth. And so there's a lot of things you can make with that. So water's going to be important. It's just having those conversations and bringing tribal leaders and our water rights to the table and what does that look like.
Thank you, Ms. Penn.
Because water is an expendable commodity, I think it might be wise to look at it like a budget and look at what systems we currently have in place and where is the output going and where are the areas of high use, and see if what changes can be made. See if there are areas that are being wasteful, if there's structural issues that need to be remedied, and possibly also increase the education of our communities of being more responsible with the use of our water.
Any follow-up, Ms. LeBeau?
Yeah, and again, that's going to come with federal funding. It's millions of dollars to repair and look at infrastructure of an irrigation system. And it's good that we have Secretary Holland, who's Indigenous, in that seat to really look at and have good conversations around Indigenous topics, particularly when it comes to water and what does that look like for Indigenous people. So we're not being taken advantage of.
All right, thank you. Well, here comes a fun round. We had fun last night, and we've altered from last night's format just a bit. We had a lot of folks online and in the audience want to hear what both of you candidates had to say about a single topic. So that's what we're going to do here tonight. Each candidate will be given a word or phrase, 15 seconds to respond to that word or phrase. The next candidate will be given a different word or phrase and will have 15 seconds to respond after both of you have responded to the first phrase. Okay, Sarah Penn, you will go first. And the word is racism.
Racism. A definition that is broadly applied and made to mean whatever somebody wants it to mean, not necessarily a common definition.
Ms. LeBeau, same word, racism.
Something that needs improvement, something that needs a crucial conversation to, something that needs some compassion and understanding.
Ms. Penn, ACEs, adverse childhood trauma.
Worrisome and life-changing, and something that we should all be aware of and looking to be able to make an impact.
Ms. LeBeau, same word, ACEs, adverse childhood trauma.
Elders, boarding schools, historical trauma, intergenerational trauma, perseverant, resilient, speaking up and speaking out.
Ms. Penn, Title 25.
I got nothing.
Ms. LeBeau.
Increase funding in mental health, particularly for our maternal mothers, and expanding the Medicare coverage from 3 months to 6 months.
Okay. Ms. Penn, access to public land and Four Corners crossing issues.
A difficult conversation. Public lands in public hands, while at the same time respecting property owners.
Ms. LeBeau, same question.
Wholeheartedly always support public access, but striking that balance with private property rights.
Okay, it's now time to come to the audience questions section. A league volunteer has reviewed the questions that were submitted and has selected 2 of them. Post-forum, the questions not asked tonight will be shared with the candidates in the hopes that they will answer these questions in a future public format. Okay, a representative's job is to advocate for their district. This question goes to Sarah. We will have a separate question on this to Ms. LeBeau. You signed a pledge to the county GOP platform in a district that is frequently led by Democrats. How will you be responsive to community needs and stay true to your GOP pledge?
I pledge those things because I believe in them, and I believe that they help all people regardless of what you believe politically. The reason that I support them is because they work. They've been shown to work over time if people will allow them to take effect. And so I plan on listening to my constituents, and I plan on hearing what the needs are and doing what is best for all of the people.
Ms. LeBeau, the question for you is that you indicate that you will represent the tribes first. How have you represented the non-native residents in the last 4 years?
Gosh, public education, it's all in of our counties outside of the district. Ag bills, I supported ag bills. Water bills, I've supported water bills. So those types of things that are important for a rural House District 33, that's what I've done. That's what I've done.
Thank you. The next question will go to Ms. LeBeau first. What is your position regarding gun control?
As an Indigenous person, and key to survival in our blood, we're hunters. 2.2 million beautiful acres with lush wildlife. We're hunters. I hunt, I have a gun, I go and sustain meat for my family and for ceremonial uses. It's very important.
Thank you. Ms. Penn.
I think that that a person's right to protect themselves and their property is a natural right that's given by God, and it is protected in our Constitution by the Second Amendment, and I fully support that. 94% of mass shootings occur in gun-free zones. As a legislator, one of my top priorities would be to look at evaluating our gun-free zones and see what we can do to change that. We need to protect our most precious commodity, which is our children, and we send them off to a place that's has a big sign on the door that says, "No guns here." I saw a cartoon meme on Facebook a while back that had a couple of guys in ski masks and had their guns, and they're walking up to the front doors of a school, and they get up there and they see the sign that says, "No guns allowed," and they look at each other and say, "Well, okay, I guess we got to go home." That's never happened. 94% of mass shootings occur in gun-free zones. If we can protect our children, we need to do so. I support school districts who offer teachers the opportunity to do just that. I don't think that it's a good idea to force teachers to carry a gun if they're not comfortable. That's a recipe for disaster. But we need to make the offering for those who are comfortable because it will save lives.
Very good. We will now move to the closing statement for each candidate. And since Ms. LeBeau went first tonight, Ms. Penn, you have the first closing statement for 1 minute.
A guy by the name of Albert Einstein said that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again while expecting a different result. In the last 2 nights, we've discussed some really important issues. They're not new issues. They're things that have been around for a long time. It's not because of a lack of discussion or lack of attempts. I see a common theme in the questions that we've been entertaining here, and it seems to be that of what can the government do to fix the problem and how much will it cost? I think that the government can't fix the problem. I think that the government needs to get out of the way so that the people can fix the problem. The people don't support the government. It's the other way around. The people give our government the power, and we've given our government too much power, and we need to start walking that back. We can't have our cake and eat it too. We can't say, I don't want the government in my life, but I expect the check to arrive on time. We need to do better at investigating options in ways that we can help others find and learn a way to fish rather than just giving them the fish. So I ask you, if you expect to reap the benefits of freedom, please join me in undergoing the fatigue of supporting it.
Thank you. And the final word tonight, Ms. LeBeau.
I always lived by, when I ran and got elected in 2018, my job was not to work within what is possible. My job is to change what is possible. And sometimes I'm not a D and sometimes I'm not an R. I'm tribal, I'm Indigenous. That's what I come with, loud and proud. And so I think if we choose as tribal nations to accept federal dollars, then by all means we should do that and collaborate and partner with them. I think we got to look at our historical trauma, our mental health, our substance abuse, or people are suffering in House District 33. It's not just simple. They're figuring out, where am I going to lay my head? Where am I going to get my next meal? I don't have gas money. Those are the deep issues. It's easy to come in and say, oh yeah, we can help ourselves and this is good, but it's not when you're surviving, when you're wondering where you're going to sleep and where you're going to eat. And that's a lot of House District 33 right now, a lot of the constituents that are there. And it's easy to say that, but here's what I'm about. And if we could accept the money that needs to help our people and save them, I'm always going to support that.
Thank you very much, Ms. Penn and Ms. LeBeau, for your answers and insight tonight. On behalf of the League of Women Voters, WYO Today, and County 10, I want to thank these candidates for their participation here tonight and in this election. It's humbling to hear how much each of you are invested in our communities. And earlier, I asked the audience to refrain from expressing your opinions following each question, but I would now ask you to give these candidates an expression of your appreciation. One final note, as you exit this evening, please consider completing the League of Women Voters electronic survey that can be accessed through the QR code on the back table. We are very interested in your feedback about this forum, the election and voter guides, and our election work. And again, you can view this program, this forum, at the League of Women Voters website, wyotoday.com's YouTube page, and on County 10. And we invite you now to join us for some light refreshments and the opportunity to connect with our candidates. Thank you for coming tonight.